Ladies and gentlemen, let me contextualize national security for you. I, Donald J. Trump, call for the complete and total shutdown of Muslims entering the United States of America. And if we were to agree with side opposition today, we'd be voting for this bigot. But we here on side opposition stand for the persecuted minorities. We stand to abolish oppressive laws which, under the name of national security, establish measures such as stop and frisk, such as the intrusions of individual privacy by the NSA, such as police brutality, all under the name of strongman leadership, all under the name of national security. And hence, ladies and gentlemen, today we believe that we need to prioritize civil liberties over national security. And across my debate, I will tell you why we need to do this in two spheres. One, because it is extremely beneficial to the individual and to the national within a democracy. And two, why it is beneficial and necessary for new and upcoming democracies, for a stable government within those democracies. And all in all, I will be proving to you today why national securities exist as a safeguard and a means of empowering the individual within democracy, and why, thus, they are necessary and need to be prioritized over national security. Before I begin though, I'll give you 6 points of rebuttal. I'd ordinarily stick to 3 or 4, but side opposition have given me the opportunity to extend it a bit more, so I'd happily take this invitation and give you 6 points of rebuttal. Firstly, by theory, national security and restrictions in emergency might be imposed on all people, but as we have seen across the past, they are enforced on just a few people. They're imposed on the entire population as a norm, but practical enforcement by police agencies and by a bigoted government happens only on a few people. And it is these minority rights we want to protect, because civil liberties are totalitarian. They are a blanket policy across an entire population. Secondly, what side opposition have done today very conveniently is they've narrowed the time frame of the debate to simply national emergencies. Now that's not true, because national security is a concept that exists outside the domain of national emergencies also. Even when there is no national emergency in the United States of America, we see policies such as stop and frisk being implemented in New York. We see cases of police brutality wherein the police is allowed to get away with it because they fight in the name of national security, even when emergency doesn't exist. So while agreed, in cases of emergency, national security does take precedence over a lot of things. But in your normal day-to-day context, civil liberties need enforcement, because civil liberties are being violated in the name of national security on your everyday basis. Thirdly, ladies and gentlemen, they talked to us about what happens in today's day and age, because today, in some cases, we prioritize national security over civil liberties. What we ought to be debating about is what needs to happen in the ideal scenario. And we tell you that in the ideal scenario, it is of paramount importance to impose and to enforce and to empower the individual over the nation in most cases. Ladies and gentlemen, the government isn't always representative. When they come here and say that you've signed a social contract with the government for protecting your civil liberties and your right and protecting you as an individual citizen, we must understand two things. One, the government cannot always protect the individual, and at some point in time the individual needs to be empowered and needs to protect his own self, which is what civil liberties allow you to do. And secondly, the government is not always representative of all the people, such as in the case of India, wherein BJP and Narendra Modi are in power with a minority of vote, which is 36%. Such as in the United States, where Hillary Clinton won by vote but lost to Donald J. Trump simply because of the state electorate and the electoral college system. And in all this, ladies and gentlemen, while they would like us to believe that it is cases of discrimination that discriminate against the Rohingya people, it is all done under the name of ethnic cleansing to maintain national integrity and national security. And because of this, ladies and gentlemen, they fail to show us why national security is of such paramount importance and why it really deserves to take precedence over civil liberties. They gave us the case of Britain and Britain winning at war and hence proving a successful policy of national security taking precedence over civil liberties. The reason why that was successful is not because they curtailed civil liberties, but rather because they actually won the war. What we need to understand is that for every single British person whose civil liberties were restored after the war, there was one German or multiple Germans whose civil liberties lapsed because of the system of war. We need to understand that even in the emergency in India under Indira Gandhi, there was a state of panic because of curtailment of civil liberties, which need to be guaranteed at all times and at all costs. And now moving to my substantive, ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, what civil liberties do is they protect individuals against any oppressive regime, be it propagated by state or propagated by third parties. Let's see how it's done when it's propagated by state. In cases such as intrusions on privacy by the NSA or prosecution of minorities, such as that seen in the apartheid movement in South Africa, such as that seen in Australia to the Aboriginal people, we understand that civil liberties provide the ultimate safeguard, because you cannot be over-dependent on your government for providing security to you. What civil liberties do is they allow you to go to court and fight your own case against even the government, even if you are a minority. Yes, ma'am?
If the government is corrupt or discriminatory itself, then how will civil liberties be ensured regardless of national security?
Ma'am, as much as you'd like to believe that the government ensures civil liberties, all the government does is it grants civil liberties. The civil liberty ensuring policy is done by the judiciary that is maintained outside the purview of the legislative and the executive. Simply by handing the power to the judiciary to justify what an individual has done, or if an individual has been wrong, you're taking civil liberties away from the corrupt government and making civil liberties an absolute policy, by which means, in your case too, it becomes the fairest policy of adjudication. So what we've seen today, in the case of third parties now, ladies and gentlemen, there are laws of tort being passed around. Law of torts protect individuals from civil wrongs being done when they are not bound by a contract. So if someone has trespassed on you, if there is a conduct of negligence, we understand that the government and the court must compensate for the people who have been civilly wronged. And this is done simply by giving people law of torts, which are civil liberties, which is your ability to go to court if someone has trespassed on your property, which isn't a right by the government, but it is a civil liberty. Because now, at this point in time, when someone has been trespassing on you, you don't need the government to protect you, you need to be able to stand up on your own 2 feet and protect yourself. And civil liberties empower the individual and provide the ultimate safeguard and a mechanism to do so. My last point of today. Civil liberties provide a stable growth for new and budding democracies. We understand that a new democracy arises out of a conflict situation as a previous colony or a country that has been in civil war. And we understand that if civil liberties aren't given to the people, there are 2 possible scenarios. One, the new country might relapse into an autocracy, such as in the case of Pakistan, where an excessively authoritarian force has been used to implement new policies in the leadership of Zia-ul-Haq and Ayub Khan. Or there is a persecution of the opposition, and then there is a unilateral party imposing rules, such as in the case of Bangladesh, both of which are inherently fatal to the ideals of democracy and cause a disruption and a falling through of democracy as a system. And because democracy falls through the second you excessively impose national security over nationals in cases of new democracies and in case of current democracies, we would beg to propose, simply because civil liberties are necessary, civil liberties are absolute, and civil liberties need to be prioritized over national security. I beg to propose. Thank you.